Dre Nitty, Dre Nitty.
I'm linking this chain, and it won't break here. I'm linking this chain, and it won't break here. We are links in this chain, and it won't break here. I shall. So tonight we got some brothers that have some black businesses that they are very successful in. They're going to talk about what got them there. But then also what we're going to do, if there's anybody, raise your hand if you have your own black business in here. Anybody? Okay. That's a lot of folk. Give yourselves a round of applause again. So part of what we have to be really conscious of is one, knowing that, right? Because so often we have businesses and stuff that we do and nobody ever knows, right? So we have to share that information. But then behind that, we have to support each other. But then also those businesses have to be accountable as well in supporting the community. Everybody cool? Yeah. All right. So brothers, I'm going to have y'all give a quick introduction of yourselves, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
My name is Phil Cuffey, and I'm in the real estate business. It's for me, I had to answer the question. Number one, how many of you are good with your hands? Raise your hands. If I had a football or basketball and I threw the ball out into the crowd, how many of you say we're good with your hands? Well, that's a good. You can take that skill and parlay it into fixing things around your apartment, your house, and that is what got me started in terms of real estate and providing a place for people to live so that when I went to bed at night, I found a way that I could be making money. And I'm going to tell you more about that, so stay tuned.
All right, peace, everybody. I'm 7-Digit Hughes. I am kingdom building on legs. You know what I mean? I have Moonroof Entertainment. Shout out to Moonroof. I think we got a member of Moonroof in here, Jermaine. Seventh Wonder, which is the branding company. Genie 7, which is the shoe company. I have over 26 different styles of shoe, from heels to pumps to boots, you name it. 1977 is the management company. And just 2 weeks ago, through the diligence of Jermaine Todd and his relationships over at SAE and with the Apex Theater, we just created corporate partnership with both of those entities. SAE, which is it's an International Institute for Sound, Audio, and Engineering. And then the Apex Museum, which hopefully most of y'all know about. It's the oldest African museum in Georgia, if not on the East Coast. And we hired 14 of SAE students about 3 weeks ago at a job fair, and then created an artist showcase last week, signing some artists. So there's a lot going on. You know, I just believe in business. A lot of times when we're creating business, we shut the doors to people that don't look like us. And I sat down with Shaq for about an hour and a half, and the first thing he said to me, he said, "What's a black business?" Right? It's just business. It's just business. And if we put that in our mind and start to invite the world into that business, then the money we make from the world, we can bring it here into the Black Man Lab, you feel me? But if we close the door to those that don't look like us, you know what I'm saying, we might be doing our family a disservice, because my product is an international product. I don't have a black business. I just have a business.
Miguel Dominguez, I'm an attorney. I do civil rights and personal injury. Also happen to be one of the board members here at the Black Man Lab. I agree with everything this brother just said. You know, in my industry, I don't really get to say I'm just going to represent one race over another. At the end of the day, if somebody was injured catastrophically through no fault of their own, or done some violence at the hands of the police, whatever that is, that usually looks like us though, in my industry. But for sure, really just focusing on doing the most good that I can in the community, and doing excellent work for people who decide to put their life and their issues in my hands.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Appreciate you all for coming. My name's Ty Hubbard, and I'm the founder of Locked In Sports, and we're a youth sporting event curator. You know, we do tournaments, camps, showcases, different things like that to help develop and provide an exposure platform for youth athletes. We also have a blog where we educate anyone interested on the changing landscape of youth sports. So definitely excited, tell you all more about that and how to support Black businesses. Yeah. Right now, we primarily do basketball. We are looking to transition into other sports. We did hold our first football camp this past year, so we're looking to get more into that, like 7-on-7 stuff and everything like that. But primarily, our events have been basketball events for the past few years that we've been operating.
So my name is Jay White, and I'm also a business owner. In the brick and mortar space, I own Pedicabs ATL, which is a bicycle transportation company. If you're not familiar with a pedicab, think of a horse and a buggy, but this is a bike. So we actually can transport up to 5 people in the back. So brick and mortar style, that's what I do. We do tourism, we do food and beverage distribution. We make sure that people get to concerts, like we just worked the SEC game, and then 10 minutes after that was over, Lil Baby was here. So we was taking people, to and from the park and on that. So that's brick and mortar. Intellectually, I have published 11 books to date. So my online presence. So we sell virtually, of course, anywhere in the world. Book is in a lot of different languages. Films, got some films out in the world. Because I'm a filmmaker, that's another business. And when I say these titles, they all have their own separate corporation, be it an S Corp, C Corp, or LLC. So it's not just random. This is what I'm doing on the side. It's it's structured correctly. Now that doesn't mean I know everything, but they're structured correctly. What else is there? There's a food and beverage, ATL Fresh, which is a fresh fruit and juice line, and we really only mess with organic products, seeded products, and that was birthed out of my healing journey. Earlier this year, I was diagnosed with diabetes and was able to reverse that through diet, exercise, and from that, been able to help other people to transform their lives as well. What else is there? Destiny Brands, which is an apparel line. I actually had to teach myself how to sew. And now I make haberdashery for men, primarily bow ties, handkerchiefs, accessories. And that is on autopilot. People go online and order that stuff for some reason. I'm grateful for that. And I'll stop there.
Most of you all and I know this of you, you have, kind of different businesses that you are involved with, right? How did you determine what was your first move, right? What was it? Was it based off of a skill set? Was it based off of you saw a money opportunity? What was it that made you say, this was where I wanted to start at? And then the second part of that is, how did you decide to start branching off into these other things that you were doing as well?
And using that broom, they started to say, that guy's got something, he's one to watch. So make a long story short, I took that habit of good saving and having a drive, a hustle to work for myself and make money. I ended up carrying that over into my studies in terms of being a good student and a good son and a good brother, and doors began to open because I had curiosity. I was wondering, like, how can I figure out a way to live on the better side of Baltimore, where there were lawns and trees and big houses, and I would take the bus. Then I got to go to a prep school, and that later opened the door for me going to University of Penn. And after working for a few years corporately, and I saw how much taxes Uncle Sam was taking out of my check, I said, there's no way I'm going to stay here, get a gold watch after retirement, and collect some kind of pension. So I said to myself, okay, I go back to school, get my real estate license, tap in on investing. I bought my first duplex at 27, and I've been rocking and rolling, multi-state residential investing in real estate. Thank you.
So my story really starts with my background. Just as a young person, I got into a lot of trouble and pretty much almost threw my life away. At some point, I was sitting in a cell and thinking, if I get out of this situation, I want to do something that nobody that knows me, nobody in my neighborhood, no one who educated me, no one in my family would ever think in a million years I'd be able to accomplish. And law came to mind, being a lawyer came to mind, and I also, it helped that I could also, that was going to be an industry where I could help my people directly that were from my neighborhood that were getting into different issues, which I understood because I was a part of that environment and understood all too well how it was that people's lives were getting derailed. And so ultimately, it's a long story, but ultimately I received the help that I needed to ultimately make that decision, go get an education. And I came to find out that just because I had been in trouble with the law before, that wasn't necessarily going to mean that I couldn't be a licensed attorney. But it was going to be a gamble because ultimately I could get before a committee at a state bar, depending what state I decided to conduct my business in, that would say, nah, you can't practice in this jurisdiction. So it was a gamble. Ultimately, I went to law school. That was a very grueling process, given my background, to get in with my background, but also, if I'm to be honest, to be able to do the rigorous type of work academically, which I had never been a great student. Just, growing up in the environments that I grew up in, I just didn't have the schools with the resources and the type of teachers that would ensure that I was successful academically. So all of that combined, got through all of that, made it past the bar and character and fitness, all these things. And then once I was in the practice, I had to decide, and I can't sit here and tell you that this is the way. It's just the way that I chose. Once I got inside, let me back up for a minute. A lot of people who end up becoming attorneys, they fixate on a particular practice that they believe is going to make money, and they just hang up their shingle one day and they're open for business. And that's just what they do. In the law, unfortunately, particularly for people in our community, no one's checking your resume as a lawyer, right? You hang up a sign and it says you do civil rights or personal injury or criminal defense. Nobody really checks what your experience is. Most of the time, folks in the community either get a name or they see a billboard, and these lawyers are just off to the races. I don't really appreciate that because I feel at the end of the day, they're practicing on us. our life circumstances, and they're making money in the process, but some eggs are getting broken for sure. So I took a different route. I came in and I started researching what type of law could I do, even if it wasn't something that was ethically aligned with who I was, but what could I do to learn the practice of law and be excellent? Ultimately, what I wanted to do was be a trial attorney, as some of these brothers mentioned I do now, which involves, you would think all lawyers can do that, but that's the farthest thing from the truth. Most lawyers are not trial attorneys. They don't even know where the courthouse is. They've never been before a jury at all. That's just in the movies you see that. I knew I had the gift of gab. I knew that wherever I was deficient in writing briefs and all of these other things that some of these other folks do, I knew no one would out-talk me with the emotion that I have and what I've been through in my life. So that was my focus. So I did things like prosecution, which I was a prosecutor in the state of Georgia for 6 years. In fact, in the 3 jurisdictions where I worked, Rockdale, Clayton County, and DeKalb County, I became the first Latino ever as a state prosecutor in those jurisdictions, which is crazy given the fact that, you know, I'm not 70 or 80 years old, but in Georgia, that was still possible. In New York, where I'm from, that wouldn't have been possible. So I did things like that that got me in the courtroom and got me training, and I really trained off of other people's dime. When I went into civil, I went into insurance defense, which I really couldn't stomach, but I was learning on their dime and ultimately got to the place where I could open my practice today.
I've always had a tremendous passion for sports, so I knew that within my career I wanted to be involved in it in some way. You know, in middle and high school, going to AAU tournaments, we would go to these big sports complexes, and I always thought to myself that, you know, one day I wanted to, you know, own one. And, you know, that's still definitely a goal, but as I matriculated through Howard University, I actually volunteered for a nonprofit called Hoop for All, and they would host charity basketball tournaments, and I would be over, you know, helping them get sponsors for the tournament, help them, you know, have different teams enter. So I started kind of learning how different sporting events were ran. And then, you know, as I continued to go to like my little brothers, AAU tournaments, different things like that, I started to understand the landscape more and more. And it made me interested in building something similar and building a community centered around sports. So in the spring of 2020, we were looking to launch. Obviously, you know, COVID was, you know, in its prime at that time. So we wanted to see, you know, how we could service that community without having a physical event. So we wanted to educate our community on the different things that were taking place within the youth sports sphere at that time. And something that was big was, you know, NIL coming out. So with that, we thought it was really important to educate athletes on the business of youth sports, and that kind of became more of our identity, is, you know, holistically developing athletes, not just, you know, on the court, but off the court, and even, you know, with their, you know, mental preparation. Like, we work with some sports psychologists and different things like that within the clinics that we do. So that was, you know, kind of how the brand of Locked In formed. And then in the spring of 2021, when we were able to, we hosted our first tournament in Connecticut, where I'm from. And then we began to do more and more events year by year. Last year was our biggest year. We had 4 events with between our tournaments and our camps. And, you know, we've been getting a really good turnout. And, you know, we are planning for a really big 2025. So that's kind of like our origin story and how we got into it. Definitely looking to continue to grow and scale. And we're actually planning an event in Atlanta the weekend of May 31st and June 1st of 2025. So anyone that might be connected to a youth basketball program that might be looking for an event like that, definitely feel free to let me know. And we host clinics, you know, bi-weekly at various gyms in the area, where we help a lot of kids out that way too. So that's kind of how we started, and some of the things that we're doing now.
Much like Seven, I started at the age of 12 as a barber. And I would say this, parents, lay some artifacts around the house, not just artifacts, but instruments that can teach a trade or a skill. I truthfully don't know where my life would be had I not found some dog clippers in the back of the linen closet when I was 12 years old. Really. I started cutting hair at the age of 12. And that took me on a journey. I mean, to this day, I love to cut people's hair because it teaches me how to listen. It teaches me how to be disciplined, how to save. You know, I bought my first apartment building, I think, when I was 17, listening to elders. But the clippers put me in an environment around people who knew more than myself. So I don't care if it's a saxophone, if it's a piano, if it's a toolbox, if it's a pair of clippers, if it's a rake or a shovel. Parents, put something around the house because your son might just get curious and pick it up and go out and do something with it. I do not know where my life would be without those clippers. I'm telling you. Because I watch my friends go down roads, and it's no judgment, but I watch them go down roads that if you ask them to this day, they're like, what the hell have I done with my life? And for me, I've only known freedom because barbering is a skill. They used to call them trades. We had trade schools. It's a trade that you could take anywhere in the world. As long as people got a head on their shoulder and some hair, I'm going to be all right. And that's been my journey. That literally took me all over the world. So I'll stop there.
As far as your time and when it comes to delegation, what tactics did you, or how did you have the epiphany of you have to have more control over your time? And what resources did you use in order to say, okay, I'm going to find different ways to start delegating things so I could be more successful with my business?
With my time was putting in the hours. I mean, you can only sleep so many hours. You're on the job so many hours. And you find your day is gone. So what I was able to do is to find someone that had the same values that I have in terms of saving and being fiscally responsible and having a vision and goals. And so when I was able to connect with somebody who was working with me in my corporate job, we both shared that passion to be free, to be investors, and we were both passionate about and disciplined about saving. So what we were able to do was to buy properties that were on an FHA list. FHA is a Federal Housing Administration, and they insure mortgages, and when people don't satisfy the mortgage, they pay the bank back. And then now FHA has these houses on the website. So we went in and bought these houses. They were in bad shape, and the windows, the heaters were taken out of them, but they did have good bones. So we had to buy them for cash. So between the two of us, we were able to get together and get $25,000 for one duplex and $32,000 for another duplex in the same neighborhood with garages in Mount Airy in Philly, for those who know that community. And with the money we saved, we were able to make the repairs, but guess what? We could not get a mortgage until those repairs were complete. Once those repairs were complete, a property that we paid $25,000 or $30,000 for was now worth close to $100,000 or over $100,000. So we were able to then get mortgages, pay ourselves back, and now we had money to buy and move on to the next project. So knowing who you can trust, delegate that responsibility so you're sharing, you're building a team, and whatever neighborhood we went to, there's a principle that we followed. And it's basically, we're about to approach Kwanzaa. And one of the principles, my favorite principle of Kwanzaa is Ujamaa. Everybody say Ujamaa. Ujamaa means cooperative economics. We are recycling those dollars. So when we go to a certain community, we hire our brothers and sisters in that community and get them to put them to work so that a rising tide lifts all boats.
One of the stops on my journey, my training, was at one of the largest law firms in the country, Morgan & Morgan. I eventually became an equity partner in one of the most profitable law firm businesses in the country. I mentioned that because while I was there and always had my eye on, I knew that wasn't going to be my home. Again, my ethics and their ethics didn't align, but I was in training. But in addition to getting good at the practice of law, actually performing my skill, while I was at these operations, I was learning the business. Everything that they were doing, whether I agreed with it or not, I wanted to understand the numbers game, what was being done, how they were acquiring, consumers, the marketing, what the numbers were in terms of the business, the overhead, the staff, processes that they, all of those things, that's in here now. No one can take that away from me. And all of that, the epiphany for me, even though I always knew I would end up where I am now, the epiphany is just seeing other people who are not as smart as you making way more money off of your labor than you'll ever see. Like if you get a check from someone, you may do well, and trust and believe. It takes a lot of gumption to not use a bad word, but it takes a lot to have 5 kids like me and be married and walk away from the type of checks that I was making at Morgan & Morgan or places like Morgan & Morgan and get that check every week. But if you understand the business of it, you realize that it doesn't make sense not to go, right? So that was the epiphany.
To answer your question, right? When I realized that time didn't exist, you understand what I'm saying? You asked about time, right? We've been told to sleep 8 hours a day. That's more than a 30 a day. For what? If you ate better, you wouldn't need to sleep so much. And you don't really need sleep, you need rest. And the two are not the same. You understand what I'm saying? So when I learned how to bend time, when I learned that information travels different at night than it does in the daytime, you understand what I'm saying? The informational highway is open at night. So if you could tap in, you could hear everybody's thoughts. You could hear where to move. You could hear where to go. You could hear where to see. You feel what I'm saying? So we stopped looking up, right? We stopped looking up. We started looking lateral, right? Without looking in. So if you could learn how to look within, you can clear time because you don't have any problems blocking. There's nothing blocking you. When you're able to think clearly, there's no complications. You're able to flow, you understand? When I met this man right here, Jermaine Todd, right? When I met him, I knew it was time, but time wasn't time yet. So what I did was I kept coming into that establishment. I kept shaking his hand. I kept seeing him eye to eye. I kept letting him watch my movements because I knew at what point when time allows us to work together, we're going to be a beast. A lot of people don't think about the time ahead. They only think about the time of now. And the time of now, the way that you deal with the time of now, you're clearing the path for the time ahead or you're making it more difficult. Those who nut up in this moment make time ahead hard because we might get locked up, we might catch feelings, you know what I'm saying, get kicked out the house, whatever the case may be. You understand what I'm saying? If you just remember that there's no such thing as time, then you can control it. And that's how I did that.
I agree with you, brother, about having a global mentality, but intrinsically in our neighborhoods, we have a myriad of other people and nationalities have businesses in our neighborhoods. And it's not the reverse. It's not that we can go into their neighborhoods and set up shop. You'll be out of business probably in the next day, if that long. So I want to get the panel's view on how we can have an attitude or strategies to change that whole dynamic. Because some of us say, oh, I don't like Trump, I didn't vote for Trump, but we go give our money to those people who supported Trump that have businesses that we don't even think about. So I just want to see what y'all's view is on that.
Now, on the continent of Africa, and I agree with what you're saying, like we have global businesses, right? But here's the part that we omit. When I go and I contribute to that person's or that group, when I contribute to their economy, somebody started a business that I'm supporting that's going to raise their children to compete with our children. Is that fair? Somebody is a parent. They're going to take the money I give them and they're going to utilize it in their community 9 times out of 10 to raise a son or daughter or a niece or nephew, to take a job or to have resources to start a business to further keep our young people asking for their assistance. So I said, what do we manufacture? What can we manufacture? I'll leave with that question. What can we manufacture? I believe in manufacturing. So everything that I have, I make. I can make, or I can delegate it to somebody who can make it from the raw materials that God put here.
Say, like, with any business, the goal should be to provide excellent service, and to provide a top tier quality product. And I feel like if you do that, yes, there might be some people who, no matter what, are not looking to do business with you. But if you're providing the best service in that area and it's like undeniable, they're 8 to 9 times out of 10 gonna spend their money with you. So I would just say focus on building a quality product, providing a quality service, and I feel like you can do business with anybody in any community.
Say education is a big part of our success in expanding to other communities and just growing our business. For me, for example, and I think it's both the business's responsibility to do that and also us, the community, right? For me, for example, I need to do a better job of showcasing, like even tonight, Marty, after I introduced myself, he went back and added, to my resume. And it's just, I grew up in a space where if things look like, you boasting, you doing too much, that doesn't feel authentic to me, right? But in business, you gotta do it.
It's marketing.
Right? It's marketing. So that's a piece. But then the other piece is what Marty did, right? In the community, if we know that the top guy that does a particular thing actually looks like us and is with us, of us, then we have to, when we have a family member that needs an attorney or needs a real estate, whatever, that we got to speak up and be like, hey, no, don't call them folks. I got you. Here's a number. This is my guy. And I don't think we do that enough. Some of us do. Some of us are really good at it, and I've been blessed by that, but we got to do more of that.
Let me tell you the message I heard when I first got here. Everything that we need to be successful is in this room. He said that earlier tonight, right? But some of y'all just sat there. You didn't even think about it. I did. I thought long and hard about it. Then there was a brother on the panel, and a question came from the audience. Well, how do we invite people into our vision if we ain't got no money? And the brother said, remember that, Jay? His brother said, most of us ain't came from nothing, no way. So with those two things, I thought to myself, what can I build and who can I build it with? So that night, I started talking to a few people, and this brother introduced me to like 13 of them. Pilo, raise your hand. That brother right there, I'm building with him. Am I not? Building an amazing brand for this brother. Me and this brother just changed 14 individuals' lives on 3 weeks ago, and then 22 lives last Thursday. We got a plan to do that a few more times over and over and over again. Why? Because I said to him, bro, I see your light. If you ain't got the ability to look a man in the face and say, I see you, King, I don't need to micromanage you. Yeah, this is my business, but it ain't mine. I'm only the one chosen to be the vessel. I'm only the one chosen to be the one to bring you into this light. And I trust you with my vision. But you got to have a vision. You got to be able to eloquently say to somebody what that vision is for them to be able to want to be a part of it. Then you got to be what you say you are. Am I what I say I am, Jay? This man is everything he say he is. And we done had back and forth, but that's what lions do. And at the end of the day, we still got the jungle. Y'all worried about your bills too much. You worried about your problems too much. Your problems don't matter. They don't even exist. You had problems 20 years ago that you ain't even thinking about now. So why you letting your problems now stop you from linking with this man, or linking with this man, or linking with this man, or linking with this man? No, don't link with him. I got him. We doing some things, you know what I'm saying? But now linking with this man. But do you understand what I'm saying? Stop letting your problems be problems and let it just be the why. And that's it.
A lot of us have an idea and are not willing to do the things that need to get done to get the information, get the training, to solidify what it is that we think we have. So when we get the opportunity and somebody comes along and believes in us and is willing to invest, or, you know, whether that's actual finances or whether that's energy, time, resources, networking, connections, whatever, where people are putting you in the room, they say, oh, that's what you want to do? My man is such and such. That's a phone call, right? What are we doing with that, though? I can't tell you how many times, you know, one thing that comes with a certain amount of success that people can see is that folks will come and literally be like, hey, man, can you write me a check for whatever it is? No holds barred. Like, this is what I need. There have been times where, and I'll speak for me, but I know if Molly was in the room, he could testify as well, because I've been in some deals with him where we lost our entire shirt, gone. We believed in brothers that looked like us, and we were like, okay, here you go. We're going to pull these resources, me, Molly, and a couple of other brothers, some in this room. Gone. Right? And if I tell you the stories of how that money got gone, it's some real BS. So if that happens enough times to cats who got it, then nobody got it.
Yeah.
So we can't squander the opportunities. Like, man, if you see, like, Seven is a great example. You see his passion is really like coming out of his pores. So if you see him and you're not serious and you just looking for a ride, miss him with that, man, because there's somebody who is serious who's going to attach to him, and a year or two later, that person will be their own stratosphere and other people will get blessed from it. But if he wastes his time and his resources with you, there's a whole bunch of other people that get their blessings get blocked.
Get missed out.
That miss out. So it's really a community responsibility to make sure that when you come to Cats and you're asking for these things, that you're ready to receive and ready to be a good steward. That word, man. Just be a good steward over what you're being given, what's being placed in your hands.
I'm linking this chain. And it won't break here. I'm linking this chain. And it won't break here. We are links in this chain. And it won't break here. Ashe.